Tonight on KGW News, no sign of survivors.
We're bracing ourselves for this being the deadliest industrial tragedy in modern Washington state history.
And tonight we're seeing and hearing what it was like on site at the Longview paper mill moments after that chemical tank blast.
Just that big steam cloud. It was everywhere. It was so vast.
As a son and daughter remember their father.
You couldn't ask for a better dad. Honestly, he raised the bar so high.
And crews worked to recover those who didn't make it out and to contain the fallout.
We have recovered approximately a dozen carp from the dikes that have died.
With questions about what comes next.
I'm committed to making sure that we get the answers in the investigation and the transparency that we need.
As a community steps up to care for hundreds of families.
You know, it's just a little bit of help, a little bit of relief.
Good evening, everyone. We begin tonight with an unsettling look on the ground at the Longview plant just moments after that chemical tank ruptured. New video showing crushed and flipped over vehicles. A truck with a pole or pipe on top of it, puddles of liquid along with that mangled tank. This is the closest view of the scene we've had yet, one that shows the true power of that blast. Thanks for being with us on what's been another difficult day in the Northwest. I'm David Molko. Here is the very latest. 2 people have now been confirmed dead. 8 others were injured and 9 others, all mill workers, are presumed dead. Officials have not said if they've retrieved any of those victims as they deal with the challenges on site, including a tank that still has caustic liquid inside and waist-deep water in some spots.
Recovery efforts began earlier today, and they'll continue to be slow, methodical, and deliberate. The priority is ensuring responder safety while treating every victim with the greatest dignity, care, and respect as possible.
Today, officials confirmed some of the so-called white liquor chemical that was in the tank leaked into the Columbia along with the nearby dike and ditch drainage system. Tonight, federal state agencies on scene helping with both recovery efforts and monitoring the environmental impact. Well, our team coverage continues now, beginning with Alma McCarty, who has more from the children of one of the victims, his adult son, who also had to be working at the plant at the time of the blast. Alma, a lot of heavy hearts tonight.
Definitely a lot of heavy hearts, David, and his story is just harrowing. Not only did he lose his dad, he is also dealing with his memories of the immediate aftermath.
Yeah, I was on site. I was helping with the situation for about 2 hours.
Eli Bernal, who works at the plant with his father, recalling the moments after the tank collapsed.
The steam cloud was so big, covered everything. Couldn't see through it. I remember seeing a truck drive straight through it because we got this call and we're heading down there and this truck's going straight through it and he disappears. You don't see him anymore. So thick.
And as the dust began to settle, this was the scene on site. Trucks flipped over, rubble covering the ground. Fear for the safety of his father set in.
I panicked, my heart dropped.
He called us immediately.
I called my mom, the second I saw it.
We were truly hoping that our dad was going to be okay.
Gilbert Bernal's daughter says he passed away not long after he was taken to the hospital.
He probably knew his fate, but it gives me peace of mind that he was so calm because he was a godly man and knew that this was his time.
His death, one of 2 confirmed by officials so far. 9 employees as of Wednesday night have not been recovered.
On behalf of NDP, these are our people. We are focused on our people.
Wish I could know what went wrong on a everyday normal day.
Yeah, I think we just want answers.
Yeah.
I think that's the biggest thing, is just to know what happened.
Yeah.
I know it's still early. I know they can't give us all the details. But I still want to know what happened to my dad.
Leaders like Congresswoman Marie Gluesenkamp Perez promising to get those answers.
This is a priority that I will not let slip. The families that I've spoken with, I'm committed to making sure that we get the answers in the investigation and the transparency that we need.
Meantime, the community awaits its next update in what will likely be the deadliest industrial tragedy in Washington state history.
It's really hard to comprehend that they're gone and I don't even know them. You know, it's just really sad. So hopefully we can just come together as a community and heal.
We also learned that there are multiple investigations into what went wrong that are currently underway, inquiries that are led by the Department of Labor and the Chemical Safety Board. David, back to you.
Investigations that could take months or the better part of the year. As the Bernal family said, they just want answers. Alma McCarty in Longview. Thanks, Alma. Tonight, we're learning more about the scope of the injuries. It turns out 4 people hurt in the blast were treated at Legacy, Oregon's burn center. The medical director there says a lot was at stake. Patients needed decontamination. Doctors had to triage second and third degree burns, the impact from the fumes, the trauma from the blast itself. He praised first responders and the company for sharing information about the so-called white liquor in the tank used to break down wood chips as quickly as possible.
These are major, what we call corrosion burns. And once the skin has been damaged badly, it needs skin grafting. And depending on the amount of stuff we have to do, recovery is in terms of weeks to months and sometimes a lifetime.
As of this evening, 1 of Legacy's patients had died, 2 were still receiving care, and 1 had been discharged. All right, let's return to the Longview area and KGW's Catherine Cook live along the Columbia. Catherine, we know some of that chemical ended up in the river and some of it in a ditch system. What are folks saying about the impact right now?
Well, first, David, some reassurance. They say right now there is no concern that the drinking water supply has been impacted. But their concern is the contaminated water in the ditch system. They say the longer it stays there, the higher the probability that it could impact the aquifer system below. On the Oregon banks of the Columbia River, across from the industrial blast site in Longview, Jason Kent is fishing for steelhead.
Was wondering why nobody was fishing out here.
Like many in the community, he's learning more about the massive implosion that rocked the Nippon Dynawave plant Tuesday morning. Top of mind, the lives lost. But there's also the environmental impact. Plant officials say white liquor, a caustic mix of sodium hydroxide and sodium sulfide used to make paper pulp, spilled into the plant's storm drains, contaminating local dikes and the Columbia River. They've recovered about a dozen dead carp from the dikes.
Hopefully, I won't be impacted, but that is something to keep in mind.
The Environmental Protection Agency tells us they deployed responders to monitor for potential impacts on local waterways and air quality. They're coordinating with the U.S. Coast Guard and the Washington Department of Ecology.
It bears repeating, those results show no evidence of airborne contamination. We will, of course, continue to monitor over the coming days.
Their focus remains on contaminated water in sloughs and drainage ditches. Crews are flushing impacted water through the Longview ditch system, drawing it away from residential areas and the city's water supply and diluting it to a level that they say can be safely discharged into the Columbia River. For now, a warning for people to steer clear of these ditches and dikes.
The areas that they're speaking of to stay away from currently now are to the north in the industrial way from Washington Way to Prudential.
Back along the Columbia, officials haven't issued any warnings to stay away from the river, but there's clear hesitation from some along the shores.
We'll definitely be showering tonight and we're not letting them get into the water because we don't want to have any more exposure than what they're allowed.
Back live, crews say during the dilution process, they'll continue to test the water, hoping to see lower pH levels. If they don't, they plan to stop the pumping process, take other measures until they see results, and then they'll start back up again. David, back to you.
Let's hope it all goes smoothly. Catherine Cook along the Columbia tonight. Thanks, Catherine. You know, we have much more on the mill itself, including a history of environmental fines at Nippon Dynawave. It's part of our complete coverage now on KGW.com. And later, we'll check in on one community effort to help the families impacted. So many families. Well, switching to a live look now from our sky camera at the Oregon State Capitol on a day when we saw a bit of a warm-up. Question is, will that continue? Chief Meteorologist Matt Spino's here with the answer. Hey there, Matt.
Hey, David. Yes, it will continue. It will be even warmer tomorrow than we were today. This is interesting, though. Our Vancouver Skycam looking off to the southeast. I was looking at this a little while ago, and I could see distant lightning way off, not even over the Cascades, but on the other side of the Cascades, illuminating some clouds way out there. We are clear, 66 degrees, no threat of thunder or lightning in the valley overnight tonight, and probably not for tomorrow, too. The thunderstorms have really backed off after a big swarm over southern Oregon early in the day. They're now well down over to Deschutes County, so you can see it's a long way from Portland. but those cloud tops are so high that we could see them over the Cascades, at least when they were illuminated with the lightning. Kind of fun to see. Now, in spite of all the lightning, there were hundreds of strikes. There was really decent rainfall in southern Oregon, too. 1.22 eastern Klamath County at Gerber Reservoir, nearly an inch at Crater Lake. Thunderstorm threat for tomorrow will include a good chunk of Oregon. I'll update that for you in a bit. Warm again tomorrow. Afternoon thunderstorms over the Cascades and a weekend cool down. And I'll let you know just how close to Portland and the valley those thunderstorms might get. David?
All right. Thanks, Matt. Appreciate it. To get you caught up on tonight's other headlines now, a man who lived in the crawl space of a Happy Valley home for nearly 3 months has been convicted of burglary and sentenced to 3 years in prison. Benjamin Bucher had set up an elaborate living space with a kitchen, lights, and even a gaming area. It turns out he'd connected extension cords to the family's electricity supply. Prosecutors say it would also go into their living area when they left the house and could hear their conversations from his hiding spot. He was discovered and arrested last September when a neighbor saw him going into that crawl space. Portland City Council has made changes to the tax some Portlanders love to hate. The first update since the arts tax was introduced by voters over a decade ago. The change raises the flat fee from $35 to $50 a person, but almost half of people who currently pay the tax will no longer be required to do so. That's thanks to new income requirements. Council says future adjustments will be tied to inflation, and the city will establish clear standards for programs funded through the tax. Changes take effect next year. And TriMet leaders approved a new budget today, one that includes service reductions and staff cuts. TriMet's warning riders the agency will become leaner as it works through a $300 million deficit, one that GM says the agency has been dealing with since the pandemic.
And we do not want to hit a fiscal cliff. So it's critical for us to resize our organization to the economy that we're faced with currently.
TriMet says it has also frozen executive salaries.